Hey, she looks cute. I can't wait to play Persona again. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. For this video especially, I want to be as honest and humble as possible. You see, I woke up this morning to news of the California synagogue shooting. It made me realize how petty my concerns are, or rather, it made me realize how fortunate that my biggest concerns are regarding the state of my entertainment, rather than my own safety. This world can be a scary place, but that's what makes escapism so important to me. The magic of creation, the heart of this fandom, is all about immersing ourselves in our fantasies and having a good time. My escapism is very important to me, and so it sucks when I see people trying to tear it down. There's a process that I've noticed. A talented Japanese artist puts out a work, and people complain about it, blaming it for some societal issue, and throw a major fuss online. Their voices get loud enough that publishing companies mistakenly think they represent the target audience. Naturally, these companies censor the work to avoid controversy. With enough pressure, they start getting proactive in their censorship, such that Japan can't even make anime and games for itself anymore, because overseas fans can still share the works with the rest of the world. Can an honest discussion come from criticism? Of course. But as I've sat waiting, that never really happened. When Anita Sarkeesian started her tropes versus women in games, I was actually on board. I love analysis and debate. I remember Jim Sterling berated anyone who opposed this kind of communication as man-babies trying to preserve their safe male space. He affirmed that nobody was trying to take away our big-breasted dead-or-alive girls. For a time, I believed this, quite foolishly. Eventually, everything became sexist, and everything else became offensive. Anime and games, once thought to be perfectly acceptable, praiseworthy even, found themselves under fire from a hypersensitive mob of offended complainers, claiming to have the moral high ground. The result was exactly as I feared. Games like Dead or Alive and Senran Kagura were being taken away, held hostage and restricted by both sides of the political spectrum, and between them, a whole myriad of other games, needlessly getting pulled apart, manipulated, and restrained to avoid offending people. Simply ignoring these complaints doesn't silence them. I feel the need to counteract every false complaint with knowledge and support to defend what I love. In that endeavor, I've been tasked with identifying the enemy that I call social justice warriors. Believe it or not, the term isn't just a straw man, and SJWs can come from anywhere. Hyper-liberals scream of objectification and demand representation, while hardened conservatives preach out of Puritan values and push religious agendas. Between them, I stand somewhere in the middle, just trying to enjoy my own fantasies. How do we define a social justice warrior? Regarding this fandom anyway, Anita Sarkeesian truly does still stand as a shining example. If you boil down her ideas to their essence, there are two ideological pillars that stand out. The first is her statement that fiction doesn't exist in a vacuum. She says that fictional media influences culture and society, perpetuating potentially harmful assumptions about sex and gender. The implication here is that fiction shouldn't be free to explore all avenues, that it should instead be regulated to fit a subjective moral agenda. Essentially, she's making the violent games breed violent people argument with sex and sexuality. Honestly, I'm not even going to debate that. Let's assume there are certain people out there who've learned to objectify and harass women, or men, from what they've seen in anime. The question then remains, should it be anime's job to prevent that? I don't think so. Our freedom of expression and our freedom to fantasize are far more valuable than any potential downsides they might cause. This is because causality does not always equal fault. I'll even use feminist rhetoric to prove my point. If a woman goes out at night in a revealing outfit by herself and gets molested, then the police question why she left herself so exposed. We'd call that victim blaming, yeah? When people try to blame the woman for being vulnerable, we're creating this mentality that women are pieces of meat and sexual predators are sharks who simply can't resist the temptation. This logic robs women of their right to express themselves and removes blame from the actual predators. People aren't sharks. No matter how tempted we are, that doesn't give us free rein to assault each other. A fashionable woman, in turn, has her reasons for dressing a certain way, and has every right to. Why? Because we live in a society where people have the freedom to express themselves without being attacked for it. At least, it's the kind of world we yearn to create. Thus, if a woman does get assaulted, her choice of clothes isn't relevant to the assault, even if it did make her seem more susceptible. If you jump into a wild animal's enclosure, you'd expect the animal to retaliate. But we hold human beings to a higher standard for obvious reasons. Similarly, if you grab a girl's ass and make her uncomfortable, it doesn't really matter whether you did the same thing in a Senran Kagura game or saw it in a hentai. Why? Because we live in a society that grants us the freedom to consume fiction without being repressed. You should never blame the assault victim for her choice of clothes, any more than you should blame a predator's disregard for the law on the entertainment they prefer. In both cases, we as humans expect each other to behave responsibly so we can enjoy our freedom of expression. The second pillar of Anita's beliefs comes down to when she says, everything is sexist, everything is racist, and you have to point it all out. In short, she actively pursues seeing the worst in things. She is intent on finding things to isolate and complain about. This isn't to say we shouldn't be critical of fiction. Instead, she investigates fiction through a paradigm that denies positive interpretations. A damsel in distress will always be a symbol of patriarchy to her, and not a sincere tale of a man or woman trying to rescue somebody they love. If something can be sexual, she will make it sexual. I mentioned long ago in my video on sexualization in anime that it's quite possible to interpret Samus Aran's more revealing outfits as empowering choices she makes for herself. Even if her creators outright confirm the costumes were meant to be eye candy for a presumed male gaze, that doesn't mean they can't also be glorifying features of a strong female character. It's like, if it pleases straight men, it must be harmful to women, as though the two are in constant opposition. It's so bad that, to Anita, the ideal female character is an androgynous chunk of low-bit pixels that lacks any kind of expression or nuance. It's not progressive, it's reductive, as if everything we've ever thought about femininity before is completely problematic. Combining all of this, we can condense Anita's, and by extension, most any SJW's mentality into two key points: that fiction must serve an agenda, and if they can take offense to something, they will. Fiction can never just be fiction to an SJW, and your fantasies had better conform to a socio-political ideology that they endorse. The biggest fallacy in all of this is that, while there are extremely important things we as humans should be addressing in the world, SJWs waste valuable effort and resources going after our fantasies, rather than trying to actually improve the world. Let's return to the rising of the Shield Hero as an example. SJWs are upset that Shield Hero's narrative is based off a false rape accusation. It features a female character who maliciously uses her influence to ruin a man's life. The SJWs argue that, in accordance with the Me Too movement, women simply don't lie about sexual assault, and the presence of a character who uses her wiles to deceive men sends the message that women actually do lie about rape. Because it doesn't fit their agenda, they are unable to even consider a hypothetical situation where a woman would lie. The plot point in Shield Hero is not making a statement on society. Instead, it's a fantasy that asks, what if a woman is lying? Even if it were making social commentary, the story has plenty of redeemable women to prove it's not out to undermine the Me Too movement. SJWs also complain about the anime's use of slavery. Our anti-hero Naofumi, hated by the entire kingdom, has no choice but to rely on a slave girl to complete his party. The SJWs complain that slavery is too serious an issue to be exploited for the sake of entertainment, claiming that Shield Hero's handling of the matter suggests that recruiting slaves is an acceptable behavior when it shouldn't be. Quite conveniently, they ignore the real-life phenomenon where people purchase slaves specifically to set them free. They don't look for the positive implications. They only seek out the offensive ones and latch on. If SJWs had their way, Shield Hero would only be allowed to express that we should always trust survivors without investigating their claims, and slavery is wrong, without retaining any of the show's nuance and thought-provoking material. Those are just examples, though. Today, we're really here to talk about Persona 5 Royal, the updated re-release coming up for the PS4. Atlus added a new character, Kasumi Yoshizawa, who will eventually join the Phantom Thieves in the story. She was revealed to be a rhythmic gymnast, and her Phantom Thief outfit bears resemblance to a gymnast's leotards, at least in her base clothing, which is adorned with other garments such as leggings, a jacket, and high heels. Without any time to waste, SJWs took to the internet to object to her revealing outfit, which is arguably more modest than many anime girls' outfits. They cry that Kasumi's exposed thighs were never there to represent her as a gymnast, but rather to sexualize a 16-year-old for horny men. There's a genuine fear that Atlas might seriously consider covering up her thighs by the time the game is released, simply to avoid any controversy. I hate that. The SJWs claim that this fantastic design objectifies women and is harmful to society, while at the same time ignoring more innocent interpretations of her design. First of all, even if her outfit were complete fetish fuel, she's a fictional character who's sexually developed, meaning there's nothing wrong with having that kind of fantasy. Finding her attractive does not make a person disrespect women, and it certainly doesn't mean that men can't take women seriously. There's even an inherent amount of slut-shaming going on into the SJW offense. It would be like telling a female volleyball player to cover up, or forcing a tennis player to wear pants instead of a skirt. They're letting a bit of exposed thigh eliminate any potential she has as a phantom thief. Believe me, if Atlas only wanted to sexualize her, they could have tried much harder. Like the fans have. Additionally, I had an interesting argument with one such SJW on Twitter. I mentioned that, maybe, in universe, Kasumi likes the costume and feels empowered by it. The response I got back was that she has no autonomy since she's fictional, and her outfit could never be empowering because it was designed to please men. I agree that fictional characters lack autonomy, and so we can put them in whatever clothes we please. But sometimes part of the fantasy is going along with the characters as they've been presented. You can't completely disregard how the character feels, even if they were written to feel that way by the same men who dressed them. Hell, this whole argument would fall apart if the designer were revealed to be a woman who chose the outfit for her own sake. It wouldn't be the first time that's happened. Again, SJWs refuse to see the bright side of these issues. If you've ever watched any of my live streams or Let's Plays, you'll know how I always choose female characters to play as. That's not just so I can stare at their asses all day. I've grown up in such a way that I find feminine strength to be very empowering for myself. Artoria inspires me way more than any male hero I've ever played as. The main reason I don't cosplay much is because all of my favorite characters are women, and I in no way resemble them. In a video game, however, I can be as gorgeous and pretty as the game will let me, and I can try on various outfits as if it were my own body. Not all female representation is exclusively about women, oddly enough. At the end of the day, it's not like I'm hell-bent on seeing Kasumi's thighs. They're wonderful, even if covered. But the main problem is that even something as innocent as this can be brutalized by social justice Puritans, trying to police what is really just harmless fun, all while real injustices occur all around us unopposed. It's the same issue with the UN. Banning lolis is not the way to protect children. Similarly for Sony, censoring fictional characters isn't going to make society a better place. Let fiction be fiction. I've said it before, but with enough support, I sincerely want to hold a charity stream using sexy anime games to raise money for real-world issues. If you're interested in making that a reality, please let me know, along with any other thoughts you might have in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and most of all, smashing that notification bell as if it were your waifu. That way you'll never miss out on all of my anime content, lore videos, live streams, and Holy Waifu Wars polls. My vids are struggling to get featured, so that bell is absolutely critical. If you want to support me directly, check out my Patreon, or consider donating via Super Chat. And as always, celebrate your fandom.